Hello everybody and welcome back again to another video, and as you can tell by the title, we are painting today. And yeah, I guess a little bit divided between whether or not I should do, watercolor paints or acrylic, but we're going for the watercolor today. And I thought that also with this watercolor painting, I would go with a sort of different, more, I guess, planned, organized approach, because normally when I do watercolor paintings, most of the time I do animals or like nature sort of paintings, and I don't really plan them or sketch them ahead of time, but I just look for an inspiration picture and then just freestyle it essentially. And it has turned out mostly great, but I just wanted to see what it would look like if I, did a little bit more preparation for my paintings. And yeah, this is what this is. We are drawing one of my favorite things to draw ever since I was like, I don't know, like even when I was very young. I just had a thing not only for animals but for fantasy creatures, everything sort of like magical, and I always had like an obsession with like dragons, especially like I guess if you want to call it like not really Japanese dragons, I guess you would call them, but from Japanese folklore. They just look so cool, like these serpent-like dragons. I just always had a fascination with them ever since I watched the Ghibli movies, yeah, and that's where my obsession began. In general, I always loved the dragons, but especially the ones of the Japanese folklore variety. And yeah, we're just gonna sketch this out. Initially, I did kind of struggle with where to start with the head. I did have a few inspiration pictures just to, remember what this kind of dragon can look like, but then I basically just freehanded it, which is why I was kind of struggling, like where, do I start with the head in particular, like at the back. So I just started with the front, with the mouth, to have an easier time. And yeah, I still have my old nail set on, by the way, if you couldn't tell, and also only on one finger it fell off. I hope it doesn't trigger anybody, and if so, it probably only does now that I mention it, but it's, well, oh well. Yeah, and I was very happy with how the sketch actually turned out, once it's finished. Even though it is kind of a lot of work when it comes to, scales. I think every artist knows, like, those types of things, they just create such a good effect. Like, it just looks so good, but it takes so much time to get the scales. And it's one thing to sketch them with like a pencil, and then to do the whole thing with a brush and watercolor, which later on in the video you're gonna see. That's basically where I wasn't too happy with it, but I guess we're gonna get to that a little later when I actually start with the watercolor. Here you can see me, just trying to figure out in which ways the dragon sort of like, yeah, what do you even call that? What is the movement called of like a snake slithers through the sky? I don't know. Bends, and I don't know what you want to call this. Also, a new revelation, even though you might not believe it because my head pokes into the camera. I actually found a way. This is like the first video where I found a way to like set up my camera in a way where my tripod would not, you know, give up on itself and fall over, tilt over, and ruin the view, which is amazing. Basically what I did is that I simply, you know, the tripod with the lighting is now used only for lighting, and I used a different tripod and kind of like put it on the other tripod in a like forcefully trying to manage how, you know, it can stay on and have the right angle. With the lighting, I mean, I guess you can still tell that it looks pretty okay with like the pencil, because, you know, yeah, but we'll figure it out, you know, step by step. And I hope that in the future also like my nail art videos are now gonna improve thanks to this slightly better camera setup. I don't know if you even can, like, if you can even notice, but I was very happy because I finally felt self-insecure. And, you know, because normally I would literally, like, if I pushed my chair the wrong direction, I would push the tripod, and sometimes simply because of the weight of my phone, it would simply like tilt over, and it just wasn't a good old time. And yeah, here you can see me going through the torturous process of, you know, painting on every single scale. And I don't know about you, but after a certain point of doing like these scales, you sort of like lose control, and it's no longer like symmetrical or the same thing. I'm just like, okay, another circle here, and it kind of loses its pattern a bit, but I guess that makes it look a little bit more natural, because I mean, what scales are perfectly perfect. So yeah, going through that. Yeah, another thing that has changed besides my camera setup is, you might have noticed when you clicked on this video, I had an actual thumbnail that wasn't just the automatically generated thumbnail from YouTube. So that's also an improvement, because I definitely mentioned this probably like multiple times by now, but you know that I want, you know, for each sort of art, like painting, nail art, so on and so forth, they each have their own character, and then that basically you can tell what kind of video it is based on, you know, the kind of character that is in the thumbnail. And so this is the first video where it's kind of like, what's basically what I imagined, and, you know, having this combination of like a, you know, the actual real world thumbnail, you know, of my actual video of me drawing, and combining it with some like comic elements. Oh my goodness, elements, yes. And, you know, kind of making it look like a fusion between, you know, your typical thumbnail, but also, I don't know about you, but when you watch like animated videos, it's obviously like animated, or like, you know, drawn characters. So having that sort of combination and play between real world and animated in this thumbnail, and being able to, you know, see the little character, which I don't know if I will post the video also this week, you know, of me drawing, painting the character that you are seeing on the thumbnail, which his name is Lepaint. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but basically it's like a wordplay on leopard, and then you, like, instead of the leopard, it's paint instead, because basically this is the character that is responsible for anything that has to do with painting. So that's the little leopard guy you see in the thumbnail. And yeah, we'll go into more detail on him obviously in his own little video, like when I actually paint him in my program. But I'm unsure if I'm gonna actually post that also this week or next week. Oh, I guess I'm gonna decide on a whim. Yeah, but you know, here you can see, talking about painting, we already started with the watercolor painting process. I have to say, out of all of my materials, I have to say especially these particular watercolor brushes are probably the most high quality thing I own because they just work so well. You can just tell these are like the only brushes where like none of like there's no fallout or anything like that. Amazing. And oh yeah, here I basically used a random, I think it was it called color or something? Like you can basically, if you Google a website like color generator, you can just get your colors generated. And I'm gonna be transparent here. This was not the first initial, I guess, color palette, because I remember like one of the first color palettes was literally just different shades of green. I'm like, I already did the background in green, but it's not gonna be like the most visually pleasing to look at. And when I think of these like mythological Japanese folklore dragons, I think of a lot of color, and most of the color palettes that I got generated at first were just like monochrome, like basically the same color but in different shades, and then maybe like a white or a black. I'm like, I don't know, that is not crazy. But then this palette was great. You know, you have this combination of like the blue, like more like cool tone colors, and then like the warmth of like a red and an orange, which I thought would be a great fit for this dragon. And we're going in with the darker, no, with the lighter blue. The darker blue we're going to use for the scales, which the fun thing about watercolor is it's not really just about, you know, using darker and lighter colors, but just layers, because watercolor is supposed to be applied very thinly and it's not supposed to be like coverage. I remember our instructor, like I once did like a course on watercolor, and she basically told us the whole point of like watercolor, like this type of watercolor, there's different kinds, and in English you only use one term for multiple types of watercolor. So yeah, in German we would call this aquarelle, essentially. That's basically this type of watercolor, and you always would want to, for some light to show through. So basically the paper should never be completely covered, which is why you don't really use black and white, because white, like there is no natural, like, how do I say this, white cannot be see-through, because white is like automatically, like the way that it is made can only be like coverage. So even when you like mix colors with white or like white watercolor, it covers up the white in the background. And obviously the same with black. If you ever heard anything about color theory, you know, black actually doesn't exist. Right? Because in order for black to exist, there we would need, you know, for the sun to not exist, like no sunlight or no light. And yeah, because like colors only exist when, you know, they reflect off of something, so technically black doesn't exist. And obviously black covers everything. So it's not the best, if not even theoretically forbidden to be used in watercolor. If not, I think in general, like when it comes to a lot of different art styles, I mean, I never went to art school or anything like that, but from what I've gathered from the art community, it does not seem to be, you know, something that people will want to use white and black straight up. Yeah, and here you can see me going into the oh so painfully process of doing all of the scales with my little brush, which the thing is already, it wasn't actually the smallest, like thinnest brush that I had, which I only realized once I was finished with this video and was like, I could have made the scales look a little bit more crisp. Oh, and yeah, here you can see me covering up a mistake because I don't know how, but color like got stuck onto my hand. That's painful. But yeah, anyways, with the brush, I only realized afterwards that I had a thinner one, but it took so much time because, you know, with the bigger brushes with watercolor, they hold a lot more water/color. So, you know, you can go on for a little bit longer, whilst with the obviously very small brushes, I need to constantly dip into the water, into the color in order to, you know, in order for it to show up. Yeah, and here you can see me skipping through the scales because I don't think that that is too entertaining to look at me suffer with my little brush and, you know, doing all of the scales. But yeah, it's just not just not it. And especially with the very small scales, when we're going to go up, you know, to the arms, right? Also, you know, needing to be very careful, especially like if something tests your patience, it's watercolor, because if it's not dry like the layer before, I think you can kind of see it. When I did it, you know, you can see it probably throughout the video that sometimes, you know, some spots are still wet and then the one color bleeds into the other color and the lines are not as crisp. But yeah, I think it's all right. It's fine, I guess. And yeah, I love how you can just see my hairs poking through. My goodness. Also my very greasy hairs, my apologies. You know, that's so funny. I thought I finally succeeded with my camera setup and then I moved into the frame. Oh well. One day, we're still in the beginning stages. It's fine. But yeah, here you can see me doing the facial features. And yeah, I'm really happy with how, in general, like just the face of the dragon, like the details turn out. Maybe not so much of the scales, but, you know, like the mouth, the fact that I was able to, you know, do such thin line art around like the mouth with the blue. Astonishing. Yeah. And here you can see me doing the eyes in a yellow. That would also be a nice contrast. And here we have a perfect instance of the yellow bleeding into the not yet dry light blue underneath. So yeah. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, here you can see me doing the teeth in a yellow. I was unsure because I'm like, again, you know, with the white, like how am I supposed to do to the teeth? So I thought maybe yellow would be a good alternative. Oh my god, my hair. Oh my goodness. And here we go with the mouth. I also thought it was too red and not enough pink for my taste. Again, a fun fact about watercolor. Pink is basically just red with a lot of water, as we've learned in our watercolor class. So basically you just use a lot of water and then it automatically looks like pink, or, you know, light pink or whatever. And yeah, I'm honestly surprised how long it took me to paint all of this. I think the original footage came up to like 1 hour and 40, 1 hour and a half, I'm not sure, but definitely a long time. And yeah, I remember, I think, I don't know about you, but in the meantime, like I always have like some sort of like video on or something like that. So I probably watched like 3 video essays whilst creating this painting. So yeah, that's that. Let me know if you also do those types of things. Even though it can sometimes be stressful, like for example, if I were to watch like very short videos, then I would have to constantly like click off or on or whatever. I don't like that. But yeah. And I think I already talked a little bit about the future of this channel. However, just yesterday I had a thought concerning my quote-unquote ASMR channel, which has only 1 video up until now, and was sort of like reflecting, because now I finally make some decisions to, you know, study a business degree next year, next semester, I guess you would say. So not like this semester, like the summer semester that's coming up, but I guess the next winter semester, essentially. I would like to start my business major and getting into those things, and I have so many ideas for not only this channel but like an entire brand that I'm thinking of. And I just realized that my passion is not as great for like ASMR. Oh my god, my scalp. No. Why? Move your head, girl. Anyways, but yeah, I was not so sure if my passion for ASMR was quite as great as for anything else I'm doing, you know, with the art and nail art. And I also have like these business ideas in my head of what I would like to do, you know, like a small business. And so I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with my second channel, with this ASMR channel, if I should change it. I thought about maybe just doing it for Art and Friends, you know, the brand, or, you know, basically preparing the brand and only using it for like promotion once I've actually, you know, get going in that area, or if I just should leave it for now. I'm a little unsure what I'm supposed to do with this channel, like not this channel, but the ASMR channel, you know, what am I supposed to do with that? So that's going to be interesting. And yeah, because I'm exploding with so many ideas, but ASMR is not really on the radar when it comes to those. Like there's so much else I want to do and try and want to use my time for. So yeah, you know, don't expect too much from my ASMR channel, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, I guess I will keep you updated, you know, if I change anything or what it will turn into. Yeah, just had that thought yesterday and was like, well, I'm not actually so excited to do that, because I remember the beginning of the year I was like, I'm gonna post 2 videos per week on both channels, which is like a little unrealistic for someone who's starting out to do content creation. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And yeah, here you can see the dragon is truly coming to life. I really like the contrast with the orange and the blue, and we're just gonna add some details, give them a little bit more texture. And yeah, he's basically finished. We're just gonna do, you know, the details on his body, as well as, you know, in his mane we're gonna add some lines as well. It almost looks like fire, like his mane almost looks like fire, which I think is really cool. In general, he looks like, you know, either like the impersonation of thunder or fire or something like that. And yeah, I'm considering that this is the first time where I really like planned out and properly sketched before I painted. I'm actually really proud, because when I think of like my acrylic paintings as well. I also don't really sketch before. Maybe I should start doing that to up my game a little bit. And yeah, another thing that I should probably do to up my game is to practice when I'm in frame and when not. And you know, because it is quite distracting, I have to say. I thought about cutting it out, but I'm like, but I paint some important details. I don't want to like interrupt the flow of the video. But hopefully next time, in my next video, I keep in mind to not pop my head into your view. Not very nice to look at, especially considering that my hair was greasy that day, so my apologies. Yeah, anyways, we're getting into the details here, the final stretch, if you will. Basically, you know, just giving the mane a little bit more dimension. And yeah, overall I'm really happy how it turned out, which with my last watercolor painting, you couldn't say the same thing. If you know, like in Artvent, I painted a penguin, and I was just impatient with it, and I was not living for it, and it just got worse and worse and worse. This is a big step up, and I also thought about maybe showing off all of my like watercolor paintings that I've done until now, because I'm almost at the end of, you know, not really like a sketch, but what do you call it, like all of the pages, you know, what I'm literally painting on. Like it's so thin, like there's barely any like pages left to paint on. So maybe I'm gonna show off all of the watercolor paintings once, you know, all of the pages, you know, are out and there's nothing left for me, you know, because for watercolor, by the way, FYI, you have to use specific type of paper, which is like thicker, and it's also like glued around the edges, because if you know anything about water and paper, is that, you know, once it gets on there, it's sort of like moves on its own and takes on all kinds of shapes, and, you know, like, I guess kind of like, I won't say bulges, but like, you know, creases and things like that, and then the water obviously moves into different directions, and you want it to stay flat, which is why it's glued on. And you can like just remove it with like a knife, or I even do it with like a whatever I can find, like even with my fingernails. Actually very practical, like little tools, those fingernails. But yeah, finishing off his face, and we're almost done. Just, you know, fixing that little spot again. And hope you enjoyed today's video, and I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.